Blue Dude here with you again. If you haven't already, and you're a college football fan, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button. I make videos every single day, sometimes multiple videos, depending on how active the day is or what kind of mood I'm in. So, if you don't like this video, maybe you'll like one of my other videos. So, I've already done the weakest to hardest schedule in the SEC East. Now I'm switching over to the SEC West, and there is a huge difference between the toughest schedule and the weakest schedule. It does have something to do with who the team is because they don't have to play themselves, but nonetheless, huge discrepancy. So I'm going to go through team by team from the easiest schedule to the hardest schedule and give you my prediction on where they will finish in the SEC West. So, easiest schedule to hardest schedule. And as I'm going, I will place them where I think they will finish in the SEC West. Okay? So here we go. With the easiest schedule in the SEC West, I gave it to LSU. And I think LSU will finish third. A small step back from last year. I think their biggest saving grace is Bo Pelini coming back as defensive coordinator. So I think their strength will actually be defense this year rather than offense. So who did they draw out of the East? Well, they draw at Cupcake Vanderbilt, home against Cupcake Missouri, home against South Carolina, and then at a very good Florida. So, LSU's toughest games. You got some tough ones, but compared to the hardest, you'll see. You'll see. Their toughest games. At Auburn, home against Alabama, at Florida, at Texas A&M. Not a very easy schedule, but easier than what we're going to go through. Alright, number 6 is going to be, of course, Alabama. They don't have to play themselves. Who did they draw out of the East? At Cupcake, Missouri, home against a good Georgia, at an up-and-coming Tennessee, and home against a pretty decent Kentucky. Toughest games, at LSU, home against Auburn, home against Georgia, and then at Tennessee. So Alabama with the 6th easiest schedule in the SEC West. So, let's move on to the 5th easiest. And that's going to be Ole Miss, and I think Ole Miss finishes 5th. By the way, Alabama I'm predicting to finish number 1, in case you haven't gotten that. Ole Miss I'm predicting to finish 5th, and they have the 5th hardest schedule, 3rd easiest, whichever way you want to look at it. So who did they draw out of the East? At Cupcake Vanderbilt, home against South Carolina, home against a very good Florida, and then at a decent Kentucky. Toughest games, at LSU, home against Bama, home against Auburn, and home against Florida. So, a lot of tough teams, but 3 out of the 4 are at home. So, that's why they're a little farther down the list. Let's go on to the 4th easiest or 4th hardest, whatever. You know, you're looking at the list. That's going to be Auburn. Who did they draw out of the East? They drew home against a decent Kentucky, at a tough Georgia, at a South Carolina, and then home against an up-and-coming Tennessee. Their toughest games, at Alabama, at Georgia, home against LSU, and then at Ole Miss for their 4th game. So, tough, but not horrific. So, number 3, 3rd hardest schedule in the SEC West is Texas A&M. And I think A&M will finish right behind LSU at number 4. By the way, I predict Auburn to finish 2nd in the SEC West, and my sleeper to win the SEC. So we'll see how that goes. So Texas A&M, the 3rd hardest schedule, and I think they'll finish 4th right behind LSU. Who did they draw out of the East? Well, they get home against Cupcake Vanderbilt, at South Carolina, home against a very good Florida, and then at an up-and-coming Tennessee. So, Tennessee's toughest games altogether, at Alabama, at Auburn, home against LSU, and home against Florida. That's pretty tough. And that's still not my toughest schedule out of the SEC West. But, good enough for number 3. So, the second toughest schedule in the SEC West, and I predict them to finish 6th, which means next to last in the SEC West. Mississippi State. Who did they get out of the East? Home against Cupcake Vanderbilt, home against Cupcake Missouri, at a decent Kentucky, and then at a very tough Georgia. Toughest games? At Alabama, at Georgia, at LSU, and home against Auburn. That is a brutal schedule. But they did get Vanderbilt and Missouri, and they do get to play Arkansas. So there's a few breathers in there. So that leaves us with the toughest schedule in the SEC West. You already know it. And I have them finishing dead last in the SEC West, because they don't have to play themselves, and because they're bad, and because they have a tough schedule. The toughest in the SEC West, Arkansas. Who did they get out of the East? Home against a tough Georgia, home against up-and-coming Tennessee, at a pretty good Florida, and then at Cupcake, Missouri. But Arkansas themselves are a cupcake, so it'll be a cupcake and a cupcake. Toughest games for Arkansas, at Auburn, home against Alabama, home against LSU, home against Georgia, and then at Florida. So 3 of those 5 are at home, but they definitely do have the toughest schedule in the SEC West. Let me know in the comments if you agree, disagree, or how you would rank them. But that's how I have them ranked. That's all I got for you for this video. Like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you on my next video.